to the Squeaky Wheel. I'm Ross Memphis Pambrun. With me as always is my very good friend, the co-host Lawrence Gervais. We're broadcasting from Calgary in Region 3, the Métis Nation of Alberta, part of the historic Métis Nation homeland. We want to acknowledge all those lands, the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Tsuut'ina, Nakota, with whom we share this land, and we have ongoing historical and friendly relationships. Thank you to all of our First Nation friends. Thank you to all of our Indigenous listeners. Thank you to the Métis settlements and to our Métis brothers and sisters. Big shout out to all of our elders and our seniors for their guidance. Thank you to Mother Earth. And without further ado, Lawrence, let's get this podcast started because we're leaning in closer to a very important day in our Canadian history and the global history of November 11th. And with us today is somebody we've had on our show and somebody who's very, very important to me. So it's easy. It's not like I'm going to trick the listeners with anything here, but my father, George Pambrun, Aboriginal veteran, 33 years, is coming on the show. So I want you to welcome our into our conversation today, Lawrence. Give me the updates of what's happening within our region, and then I'll talk to our listeners again a little bit about the format.
Yeah, I mean, we're putting on Métis Week. That's coming up in November 16th. So we do that after Remembrance Day, of course.
Which is Louis Riel Day.
Remembrance Day is out. What's that?
Louis Riel Day, I think, is on the 16th, isn't it?
Louis Riel does, yeah, is on the 16th, and that commemorates his death date, of course, when the Canadian government had charged him with high treason. Yeah. Brought him to court and executed him. And, from the Métis Nation perspective, and especially mine, we know that was ripe with a different viewpoint from us. And certainly as a U.S. citizen, as Louis Riel was, certainly did his process to become one, was a little bit different. We determined that as maybe he possibly should have been extradited. But that's another podcast that we'll probably do in the future and talk about the whole sort of that issue. I know people are trying to exonerate him or look at pardoning him, and the Métis Nation viewpoint is keep him the way it is, because as soon as we change history, that allows for adaptation that we don't want, right? So speaking of Métis Week, that's what it is, and Métis Week for us is always a cultural celebration too. So we have other events that we normally do, like a seniors event, and we do a business mixer. We do, and then all the open houses like the Friendship Center, Métis Calgary Family Services, our Local 87, Métis Urban Housing. They do all open houses. So we contribute to as much as we can. Pidigo San is our business affiliate. They kind of do the sponsorship of the business mixer. So we're trying to develop more virtual meetings this time around. And then we do a flag raising at City Hall here in Calgary. And we encourage all the other municipalities to look at flag raising for that specific day of remembrance to Louis Riel, as well as I know that the city of Airdrie did theirs last year. And they lit up their city hall in blue. Like people, they practice a different a way of commemorating. And I think that's important, especially for Métis Week. And we always do a flag raising, and Mayor Nenshi comes out and shows up. And our councillor, Ward Sutherland, who's Métis, who's one of our guests, comes and attends that also, as well as many Métis Nation members who work and live downtown Calgary come out too. But it is kind of nice, and we look forward to that event too. And like I said, everything is virtual. And then we're looking at, we wanted to establish a war memorial for our veterans this weekend, but unfortunately it did get canceled due to COVID, some restrictions, and I know some impacts to that, and so it was unfortunate to see that kind of dispel from us. We're currently starting our roundtables for our Constitution Committee. Constitution Commission, to look at our self-government and where we're headed with that. But that's a process that's going to take many years. But we're just starting those discussions now. So we're just on the ground level. I was tasked to, recommend, just a handful of people because of all the distancing to be a part of that. So, so we're very excited to have that start to happen. And I know the community engagement too will be online and it will be virtual. So people ever have questions or concerns or want to have a hearing, all those requests will be heard through the Constitution Commission. I know they are setting up a website currently and how that looks. And we are moving into a new place. So that's exciting. I know with COVID restrictions, we may not see each other anyways, but at least we'll be in a new place, a much larger one. And then of course, looking at, we have boxes everywhere at the office now currently, and we're just loading them up and trying to get them over there. We got the keys to the new place now, so we're very excited about that. And then possibly hosting a new website in the near future. And I think that's important too.
Now I'm curious.
To really suggest,
When the move happened, because of course, being lame, as you often point out, as I try to figure out, as I navigate through the healthcare system to heal this leg injury, how much stuff did we recycle? How much stuff did we move out? Because every time somebody moves, and we've been in that office for a long time, we must have cleared out a lot of stuff and sent it off for salvage.
What Joe said, there was probably about 3/4 of a bin that was kind of full of stuff from the past.
A bin already filled up. So hopefully that finds a new place and a new home for some of that stuff. But I'm excited about our office. I think you're right. We're going to create a new connection facility, a new place where we're going to get to the point where people get a chance to come in and connect again, so that we're all a little bit closer. So folks, here on the Squeaky Wheel, Lawrence and I do tend to banter a little bit about some of the stuff that's definitely happening as based on the president's report. Then we talk a little bit about coffee, which it's just getting harder as a result of the fact that I can't drive because of this injury. So you don't always get a chance to get the coffee, but I always like to keep my little pattern going. We talk some of the current issues, as well as, Lawrence's report. We're going to have our guest on today, and who I'll bring into the conversation shortly, but I also just have a few things I wanted to talk to you about that. What to expect on our future broadcasts and how to connect with us. One of the things that I think is extremely important, folks, is that if you get a chance, please go onto our YouTube channel, hit the little red subscribe button. Every time you do, there's an electric shock that hits Jason, who's our digital media manager and our editor. And we always like to see that shock eventually, hopefully, once it's hit him about 1,000 times, the injury will be able to continue to expand our program. So please, folks, make sure you can do that. Lawrence, our coffee today is Canadian maple, brought to us by the Rocky Mountain Roasters. Now, unfortunately, you don't get a chance to try it, but I don't always traditionally love flavored coffees this way, but I have to admit, it's got a nice flavor. It's got a nice character to it. And a big shout out to the Rocky Mountain Roasters. I think I picked that up when I was probably in BC. One of the current issues that I wanted to talk about, Lawrence, was flu shots. But I also wanted you to thank our group and the effort that's gone forward when it comes to connecting our Métis citizens with the flu shots. And I finally did. I had to get my wife to take me, and I was able to get to a Safeway and pretty much walked right in, and they were ready to poke me. But maybe you could talk just a little bit about that, because I don't want to use it as our current issue. And before you talk about that, big thank you to Mr. Kevin Ripa, who's the security expert for last week's Squeaky Wheel, to our Okanagan coffee that I often like to, and to the report that you gave. But we're hopefully, folks, and anybody in the business world, watch that podcast so that you have an idea. Sometimes the simplicity of passwords is going to save you. So big shout out to Mr. Kevin Ripa. But Lawrence, take us through the flu shots.
So we, our seniors coordinator, Isla Vivier, had requested that, and Kyla Prakash, one of our health coordinators, had recommended that we do some flu shots for our members. We know the seniors are one of our vulnerable populations, so we offered it to them. And pretty soon we got our youth coordinator, Kirsten Acuna, involved, and Beatrice Schultz, and we did it for families predominantly, but a lot of seniors came, and we had a booked a time with them that they could do some safe distancing, and we had to gave him a shot and said, "See you later," right? And hopefully it doesn't hurt your arm, you know.
Mine was sore for about a day and a half. So, folks, just giving you the heads up. It does seem to be a bit tender when that medicine goes in. But yeah, that's thank you for recognizing too the people in our office who are contributing to that time. And folks, if you have a question about those things, send a message to our office. And if you need to the connection through us, tsw at métis3.org. Make sure you go to our website, métis3.org, and connect to Caitlin there at the office, and she'll give you some ideas on. And the more people we hear from, the more information we get, the more we're going to have for that engagement with our own members.
Yeah, and here's another thing that we should probably bring up, because people probably have seen. I was on a commercial for Global TV. Yes. To announce the new Rupert Stein Institute program for individuals who want to do the first and 2 years of education, and having at least a contribution from Rupert Stein to assist them. So people look on Global, watch Global. I don't advertise for Global. I don't get paid by them, but okay, if you guys want to see the commercial, it's there. If you go to the Rupert Stein Facebook page, you'll see the announcement too. So,
Lawrence Global Gervais. So Lawrence, I'm gonna bring our guest down. But one thing I wanted to bring up beforehand was just some funny things. And our guest today being retired Sergeant Major George Pambrun, 33 years in the military. Some of the having traveled all over Canada as a result of my dad being moved around. I remember growing up and the smell of boot polish in our house and the smell of the ironing board. That man polished his boots at the end of every day or the start before the next day as he'd get them prepped and ironing. And as I grew up, I watched that and I saw how he used to prepare for his time of going to work and his time serving, as it were, at any aspect, well, whether it was overseas and here. And there was a respect or a pride that I had when I remember going up to Dad one day saying, "Hey, would it be okay? Could I polish your boots for you?" And I don't think he was necessarily wanting to get out of the effort of it, but I think he respected that I wanted that level of engagement, attention, and to learn. I wanted to learn from him. So it's a fun memory.
So did you ever polish his boots then?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think I just sort of walked by them, but I did.
Because I did. You probably wouldn't have passed inspection, I'm sure, because you probably wear a lot of smudges on them and stuff.
Yeah, right? There's probably a bunch of smudges or some tears. I'm sure he also helped polish them up a little bit. But in my professional role as a professional fire officer, I still polish my own boots. And there's a wonderful allowance that's given to us that we do have polish available, and there's a pride. So this is our opportunity to invite the retired Sergeant Major George Pambrun to the show, and let's bring him on, Jason. And finally, here's our opportunity to bring my father back onto the show, Lawrence, from the first time that we'd had you on. And Dad, Lawrence and I were just chatting a few minutes ago about, and I was regaling him with the tales of my youth from where I used to watch you growing up polishing your boots every day, or at the end of every day in order to get ready for the next day. And it got to the point where, as I was finally old enough that I could hold the brush, I used to polish those boots for you. And then when I got a little older, I really paid attention to the fact that every night you were ironing that shirt, that sort of light, dusky, sort of baby bluish, greenish kind of shirt. And then eventually I was old enough that I got a chance to hold that iron. Now, not having served myself in the military, but having the opportunity to serve, the folks as a professional firefighter and a captain, those were memories that I cherished, that I felt like I was contributing to both the legacy and strength of my father, and also to the role that you took on. And I guess I've carried a little bit of that, of trying to make sure that in the role that I encompass when I lead men, lead men and women, that I wear that same pride when I wear my uniform. So thank you kindly. Thank you always, Dad, for your service. And Lawrence, welcome George to the Squeaky Wheel.
Yes, thanks for being here today, George. We do appreciate all your time and yeah, time served. And I know that maybe Ross serves us coffee, and maybe that's his point of service, and we thank him for that too. And no, you know, we're creeping onto Remembrance Day very quickly, and certainly the Indigenous Remembrance Day too, and what that'll look like. And we look forward to the conversation today.
Yeah, so, you know, I was just thinking there, you know, after talking with Jason, and of course reconnecting, and you know, thinking like of his grandmother and grandfather. Of course, I know them, and I know like the family up around from where Marlene came from, up around High Prairie, Girard area. And, you know, it's just, you know, comforting to think that we've sort of formed a family here, you know, and that's enlightening, and it's encouraging. And it really, you know, makes me feel good.
And I know that the connection, and Lawrence and I are very lucky to have Jason, who's Marlene Lance's grandson, and the matriarch behind the Region 3 Métis Nation that supported Lawrence's education. The opportunity that earlier when we were chatting with Jason, I agree, as a stalwart editor and producer behind our show, every opportunity that we get to include him and his family. You're right. The Squeaky Wheel being its own little family of trying to create that connection, but also the Métis connection and that history. We have to continue the legacy of both Marlene as well as supporting everybody else who's connected with the Métis community.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, we've, you know, me and Marlene, you know, talked about when she was retiring and supporting the family, and you know, I made a promise to her I would continue the legacy and support them as best I can. And, you know, Jason is a big attribute, and I know it's Jason 5 minute of, you know, congratulations, and hopefully that he does well for us, and he is so far. The only thing is, you know, he's teaching us little terms like algorithms and all that other youth stuff that I have no clue about, but and it goes over my head, and I'm sure it goes over Ross's head, but at least we're there, and we, you know, yeah, it's Jason. Okay. And then we just keep going, right?
He's the backbone. I think what we're going to have to make sure that we do is glean a picture from him, whether he likes it or not. And we're going to ask him to try and insert a picture of him. So as we occasionally make reference in our podcast, this is not just Lawrence and I. There's a strong community behind us. And then also to all of the listeners out there, and to the video listeners, thank you for your supporting. Thank you for subscribing. This is what gives us the energy and the appreciation that we want to continue to share the Métis conversation. So, Dad, getting a little further into the whole as we move closer to Remembrance Day, before we get too far into some of the questions that I want to ask about history and the poppies, I want to take this opportunity for just to give you a few moments every year. And as I get older and realize, as Lawrence points out, my damaged leg and Achilles as a result of my age, we all lose friends, family members, and definitely those that we lose around throughout the year within the veteran community and the Aboriginal community. Do you want to take a moment to express some solemn appreciation to those people that you've lost?
Yes, you know, and what comes to mind was just recently the passing of Cliff Superno, and as you know, we were talking, and I had suggested that that you guys bring Cliff on for onto the podcast, and Lawrence told me, he said that he died. Well, it just shocked the hell out of me. I had talked to him. I guess maybe a few days before actually this happened. I wanted him to confirm, some things that's been going on in Métis Nations, and so I phoned, and he answered the phone. Well, he was up in Valley View. He was out in the woods, and he was moose hunting. And so anyway, he said, George, he said, I'll call you back. And so he did. He called me back a few days later, and so we got to talking, and so when Lawrence mentioned that, it was a total shock to me. But Cliff and I go back a lot of years to when I got posted out to Edmonton in 1984 from Kingston, Ontario, and I had quite a few parties out at Cliff's place, and myself, Leonard Gauthier, Winston Watney, we'd go out there and perform, and and just have a good time. And we did get quite a few times, and like Cliff, he worked for the government for quite a few years. He was a major contributor, to the Métis Nations. Originally came from Paddle Prairie, him and Tom Ghostkeeper, and again, and I just found out, just recently, that I'd phoned Elmer Ghostkeeper, who's Tom's brother, and I knew that Tom was having problems, with diabetes and that, and so I asked him. I said, "How's Tom?" Oh, God, he said, "Tom's been dead." He said, "For about a year and a half or so. I never heard anything." And of course, mind you, during that time, I went through a major operation and was quite sick also and recovering. But anyway, those two, and I met when I first came out here. We became, really good friends.
Was the one of the roles or the values of the legions that are the ones that are struggling now, did that ensure that kind of connection with the seniors and the veterans, was that part of the role of the Legion? Are we losing some of that as a result of losing some of the legions?
I think it's the sign of the times and the way the society is going. After like the Second World War, I can't comment on the First World War, but Second World War and Korea, we had a lot of veterans, that had served. Canada had, I forget how many millions of soldiers and servicemen, and of course they built these legions, or established them in some buildings, and they eventually built their own legions. And a lot of them, I can remember the legion in Meadow Lake was just an old house, and I knew soldiers socialized there, and then as time went on, well, the economy grew, and the legions grew, and they had a great following. But that was back, we're talking, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and then the military started reducing. A lot of the veterans were passing on, and the military was downsizing, and it was a different, socializing, was becoming different. Like when I joined the Army in the 60s, none of us had radios. We didn't have personal radios.
Right.
TV, I mean, there was across Canada, there was two channels, and that was CBC English, CBC French. And, and it never went 24 hours a day. So, it wasn't until, probably sometime in the 60s, late 60s and 70s that, we got a TV. By this time we were raising a family, but, and, we weren't making that much money. So a lot of our socializing was on the bases, around the messes. We had, private's mess, corporal's mess, sergeant's mess, officer's mess. And, so our outing would be, going to a dance on a Saturday night, but you'd maybe do that maybe twice a month, because by that time, you had to find babysitters. But that whole thing just evolved, and it's to the point now, where at one time, and I think we're sort of because of our own demise in a way, but at one time, the Legions, strict dress code, and so, as time went on, that sort of discouraged a lot of the young people, because, people were, by this time, hell, there was mixed drinking, and, you could wear your hat into a bar. Well, you couldn't do that in a Legion, and pretty well you still can't. They frown upon it, but and you had to be a retired member of the military at one time. Then you family members could become part of it, and then I jokingly say it got to the point of where if you could recognize a military uniform, you could join the Legion, because they needed the members, they needed the support, and they had to change. Like in a lot of the a lot of the Legions, they eventually developed what they called a snake pit. And we used to have that in our on the bases, where if a guy was coming in out of the field and he was dirty, or he was playing ball somewhere, they could go to the snake pit and they could get a beer, or have a few drinks in that. But other than that, you didn't walk in the mess unless you were properly dressed.
Well, I think they were definitely having trouble years ago trying to stay afloat, and I can't imagine that COVID's making that any easier for anybody. So, big shout out to the Legions that are still trying to support our veterans and make sure that connection still happens. Nowadays, I almost think that if you don't have a Facebook account, which I personally don't, people don't know who you are, where you are, and they don't know when you're gone. So I wanted to ask Dad a little bit about and talk to our listeners about the Poppy Fund, because you still make that commitment, and Mom makes that commitment to share that responsibility, having been a wife of a soldier for so many years, and the pride that she took, and just the challenges that she had to face as well, being a soldier's wife. But both of you take time to sit at the Poppy Fund. How are we starting to share that message now? I mean, COVID's difficult. I'm not actually familiar enough with social media. Do you post a picture on your Facebook to show support? I mean, if that does kind of make sense to me, that's something. Folks, make sure you post a picture of Instagram of a poppy field or something, to take that little bit of time to show that we are recognizing November 11th and that we're supporting our veterans. But talk a little bit about the Poppy Fund.
Well, I've been a member of the Legion for a number of years, and a volunteer of selling, promoting and selling poppies, and the the Poppy Fund, supports the retired veterans, those that are still in the military, RCMP, and also like their families in that. If they're having problems, food, heating, clothing, housing. There's like here they have a pass for the hospitals in that you can with so you don't have to to pay for parking. They also they also have scholarships where students in that can can apply and they can get bursaries. They support a cadet program, which is a great program, and so they contributed, and and basically to the locale of where those legions are, that in that area, some of the money of course is sent to the command and also Ottawa, and that in order for them to keep on functioning in that, but primarily, and the it's financially controlled. So if you want to know where the money is going, and the money that you've contributed, you can phone that legion or you can phone command, and so and it's religiously taken care of, and the from that point
maybe I'll ask Jason. I'll ask Jason too. Maybe Jason, if you get a chance, throw up the site for our listeners and for our viewers of the best place that you could donate online, since I know there's always been challenges when it comes to the Poppy funds due to the nature of theft. Maybe there's another opportunity for our listeners to donate that way.
Yeah, and also, those people that are thieving out there, we're watching, we get you on camera, we shame you every year. It always seems to be the same thing, right? So
I can't believe that people don't think that there's cameras everywhere nowadays. It's unbelievable.
Another thing too, I wanted to bring up is, always that reminder of that Gervais guy who said that he was a veteran and showed up at the Remembrance Day festivities and in Ottawa. Well, I'm not related to him, just so you know. I have no idea. So
thanks for clarifying that, Lawrence.
I know your family.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I always leave a little change every time I would see you. I leave a little change on my desk just to see if Lawrence is going to grab it when he walks out.
The other day, I was sitting at Walmart selling poppies, and I was sitting beside this Bob, I forget what his last, Cunningham, I think his last name is. But anyway, we were talking, joking back and forth about, and of course, the social distancing and people come in and there was this woman. She was a greeter, and she had this sort of gun, and it looked like a taser.
And I assume it was just hand sanitizer.
What it was is that they have to count the number of people that come in the store.
Oh, right? Okay.
Because they're only allowed, I don't know, a certain number, say 1,000 or something like that, depending on the size of the store. And so after I talked with her and she told me that, and then I said to Bob after, I said, you see it? I said, see her? I said, I said, it's a taser. I said, if you don't come in here, if you come in here and you're not wearing a mask, I said, she's going to give you a shot. Because the question sort of is, what do these guys do if a person comes in there and doesn't wear a mask?
Yeah.
Are they going to tackle them, or what are they going to do?
I think go back to Lawrence's suggestion. Sometimes shame works. Sometimes it doesn't. You definitely don't want to be that person who's putting yourself in the situation where that person finds they don't like you, and then all of a sudden they come out swinging. But yeah, we're running out of ideas. Maybe the taser's the best ideas. Maybe while you're sitting there with your at the Poppy Fund, you should also have a taser or a BB gun or something. I guess I shouldn't suggest that that's a welcome suggestion here on the Squeaky Wheel, but a big shout out to the agencies like Walmart and the other agencies that also allow our veterans the opportunity to display the poppies, be part of the conversation, and accept some money in that way. One of the other things I want to talk about, Dad, which is a difficult conversation for a lot of people, but the veterans, elders, seniors, anybody who has any kind of handicap, the challenge with COVID right now is loneliness, and the aspect of family and community in the conversations that you have out there with your friends and the people who are who have your background of the world of being in service. What do we need to tell the families? What do we need to tell the youth, our nieces, our nephews, about connecting with the elderly? Because this is a unique time. It was, sometimes people always have some excuse as to why they haven't gone out to visit family. But now we have one more barrier, the COVID barrier, that says, oh, well, it's even harder for me to go visit family. Talk a little bit about just how important this message is, that people need to stay connected.
The fact of where, I've been posted in different parts of the world, just to be able to, phone, like when Mom and I were first posted to Germany, we never phoned. Phone communications was, so we had to write letters, and even that sometimes was questionable. But maintaining communication with family is very important, and very important with friends. Mom, Judy, has always been an organizer. I mean, that's her background, being a nurse, reaching out to people. And so when she came over to Germany, I was away on exercise, at different times. So, and we were living, little villages, like Alderside, or from around here, and so that's where the families were. So the a lot of the socializing, of course, again came back to the base in that, but socializing is we're sort of like a herd animal, that we need to talk with other people, and it even coming down to learning another language. You want to talk to that person. When we were in Germany, there was very few people there that spoke English, so we had to if we wanted, to learn to speak German, somewhat, but and of course, what you guys are doing, with the squeaky wheel, and what Métis Nation is doing, like Isla, she's got a group that she phones, and just recently they'd organized the flu shots.
Yeah.
So we get out to to see people. We're still wearing masks and stuff like that, but yeah, and it's I can't stress how important that is, and people that, are here from, and don't have family. I mean, it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
It is tough, but you got to reach out.
Yeah. I have a question. Have you been to any of the, like Métis Nation is, currently has the Batoche Memorial. And last time you were on, we talked about the Veterans Monument there. Métis Nation of Alberta is putting one up at Métis Crossing. I know we were supposed to have the unveiling on Sunday, but they canceled that due to COVID and all these other restrictions that are happening. And we know you're busy with other things, but what is your comment sort of on, or what is your experience on the like sort of the national monument level? Have you been to France to see what they had there? Have you been to other countries or on the Canadian side?
Yes, yeah. We made a trip to the War Memorial at Vimy, and just where it is, the local area, and it was so, I don't know if it's the right word, non-denominational. It's there representing, soldiers, and it basically represents all nations.
Mm-hmm.
And when Hitler invaded, like as it was built after the First World War, when Hitler invaded France, he didn't have it destroyed. He was impressed by it, and so, that, that says something for, what's, on the news today, racism and sexism, and it's just, I don't know. I don't know where it's going. It's like I'd mentioned before, I had experienced racism and sexism and that sort of thing, but I'd like to believe in it. And if it ever happened, well, like when I was a senior NCO, I wouldn't tolerate it. I would address it there, and I'd like to think that the officers and senior NCOs that I served with, they would do the same thing. So,
commenting on your on the Vimy Memorial, I do remember I've seen pictures of it, and the first time I'd walked on that soil in northern France, and I remember walking up to it, and it is consumingly immense. It is so beautiful, but you're right. There's a simplicity behind it, and I think that gives it more of its impressive feature, the beauty behind that memorial and the respect that it gives to all soldiers who are placed in that situation, sometimes not always understanding their what the background behind why they're fighting, but that's their duty. And a big shout out to all the soldiers, those continuing to serve. And it's a challenging time. Nowadays, it almost seems like more fighting happens through computers than it does happen, in hand-to-hand combat. But we can't forget of those people who spent their time away from their families, or in some cases taking their families along. Me being born on the second tour of your time in Germany, we have to say thank you to those veterans and soldiers each time that we see them, to anybody who served, regardless of the duration of time. So in the interest of time too, although I also wanted to say, I know hopefully we'll share the message. You and I are going to both be part of a conversation, and I've talked to the Métis Nation about how tomorrow we're having a conversation with Bow Valley and the respectful aspect that they do and sharing the Indigenous conversation regarding Aboriginal veterans. And I'll make sure that we get that information shared as well throughout of our community. But Lawrence, maybe you can, because I get to see him and talk to him, and though I haven't had a great chance to hug him too often in the last little while, say thank you to George for coming on the show, and continuing this connection. This is the busy time for veterans.
Yeah. I mean, anything that comes out of their schedule and it comes to the Métis Nation, we are also grateful, obviously, for his service. And we see him at a lot of our grand entries and our ceremonies. And sometimes we never know the real story behind a lot of these veterans. And we're always very grateful when George shares his experiences there. And, shares the experience of my family too, because I don't quite know that generation, but he knows them, of course, and knows them by names and faces. And it's just nice for me to sit down with George and go through that too, and that experience. Yeah, it's always rewarding. And I thank George for everything, for being here and supportive of Region 3. And we look forward to more stuff.
Yeah, well, thanks, Lawrence. Have we got a few more minutes?
Sure.
How are we doing for?
Well, yeah, we can always edit a few things, but what would you like to talk about?
A salute to the veterans and the people that I served with. When I joined the Army, there were still Korean veterans and Second World War veterans, at different ranks and that. And I had the privilege of sharing information with them, and became a better soldier having known them. I didn't meet Eddie Piché until we came down here to Calgary. But we had both served together in Germany at the same time. And, of course, we had got together a lot of times and shared different memories. And one of the Métis gatherings, I'd got up and told him that I'd been past president of the Aboriginal veterans in the national body, and had served in Germany. And these two women came up to me and they said, when had you served there? And so I told them, and they said, do you recall of a soldier being killed over there on a training exercise? And I could remember it, and he was traveling in a armored personnel carrier, and either blew a track or something because it rolled over and killed him. He wasn't driving; he was the crew commander. And I said, yes, I remember that incident. But I said, and Eddie and I had talked about that, and Eddie was there at the time.
Mm.
So he came over. I called him over, and so he told him his experience, and and because there was somebody that there when their brother died, it just made them feel, a whole lot better, and unfortunately, Eddie died a few years ago. I really miss him. But there's so many other veterans that I'd served with, and I could name a few of them. There's two Dakotas, and their first names was Alec. Alec Dakota. He was a sniper in the First World War, and he was killed there. But prior to that, he'd also served, joined the Edmonton City Police. Then he was the first Indigenous person to serve with the Edmonton City Police. But his brother Fred had participated in the Second World War, and the people that there's just so many of them that I'd served with. Claude Pettit, Wally Sinclair, Winston Watney, George Fiddler, and some of the old names there for Ray Delaron, a cousin of mine. His brother Paul was killed in was killed in Italy, and I had an opportunity a few years back to go visit his grave and bring his spirit back. So Vic Latondre, Sam Sinclair, Oscar Lacombe, Stan Shank, Archie Hudson, Herb Bell, Len Desjardins, and him and his brother Al. But and there's so many others, but I had the privilege of serving with them, yeah, and it's a lot of good memories, and key in on the good memories, because we had some good times.
Well, thanks for sharing those names, and thanks for sharing your time, Dad, with us here on the Squeaky Wheel. Look forward to seeing you behind the table again at every year when there's another opportunity for a poppy sale. So we're going to let you go there, Dad, because we're going to close out this session on the Squeaky Wheel.
Mm-hmm.
This is what my mother had made for me. My nickname was, they called me Pam. And look at the meaning on that. They even put in my social metal number.
Oh, nice.
SL, the L stands for Saskatchewan. That's how you could identify soldiers in those days, but they changed that now. So, but anyway, thank you very much for letting me participate in this. I always enjoy talking with both of you.
Thanks for sharing sharing the message. Now, Lawrence, it's kind of easy for me to say that he's always my favorite guest. And I imagine that if I didn't say he was my favorite guest, then Mom would suggest that there's no soup for you, Ross, would be the ultimate result of the fact that I didn't make mention of that. But I'm very fortunate that, as I was mentioning earlier, maybe that's part of what Dad instilled in me was the sense of service, a sense of community. In the world where I lived, having been born in Germany, every place that we moved, you had to make new friends. You had to reconnect. And I'm very lucky, as we've talked about many times, that at the age that I am, I've connected with the Métis community when I finally started to understand what Métis was, as George went through his experience. And it's just, there's another family, and living in Calgary, broadcasting from Calgary and band in Calgary, my business in Calgary. This is a strong community. And I hope that we continue to see veterans supporting veterans. And I hope we continue to see our nation support our veterans. And a big shout out again to all of the Aboriginal veterans who play no larger, no smaller of a part. We're all in this together. Thank you for everybody for taking your time to serve. So,
yeah, I mean, right down to Ottawa with the Veterans Memorial there, the Indigenous one, which is just I think just a mere meters away from the Unknown Soldier one, and then of course what we have at Batoche for the veterans there, and what we're building at Métis Crossing for the veterans. I think that's important, and the recognition with these Métis Nation payments to World War I veterans too. That's important. That's coming from Métis National Council, and hopefully we look at more supports later on for Korea vets to where we are with our current ones too, and think that's important. And then the younger generation too. We always want to make sure there's an avenue for our younger Métis veterans, such as your brother and your sister, to be a part of the Métis Nation in terms of their recognition for their service. So we're very cognizant of that too. But yeah, and supporting the Aboriginal Veterans Association, number one, to get that complete.
No, and actually, thanks for that, Lawrence. Thanks for recognizing too that there's quite a number of members of my family who served. Yeah, my sister as well. And though that for anybody, regardless of the duration of the time that they may have served, the fact that they're putting that foot forward and that allegiance forward to our great nation is such a proud, respectful thing for themselves, for their family, for their community. And hopefully, as this reconciliation continues to move along, we see that there were distinct challenges. And we've talked about it before, where our veterans weren't being recognized after having left the military. And I think.
Yeah. And, I want to also give a recognition out to one of our local presidents who's a veteran too. And he happened to share his story with me just last week. And, it really impacted me because he talked about his experiences because his father was a World War II veteran. His brothers, and I think he grew up with about 5 of them, were all veterans themselves. One was KIA, so he was killed in action. And, Bernie's, and his name is Bernie Ouellette. He's not a stranger to the Métis Nation of Alberta, certainly, and his role at Rocky Mountain House. But, he's just an amazing individual with all his stories too, of being with NORAD and being in the bunker and all that stuff. Right. So, I wanted to give a special sort of recognition of Bernie Ouellette up at Rocky Mountain House, the president.
No, thank you. The for all of our youth out there, I'll probably get some scathing emails from them. Well, hopefully, as a result of this statement. I get it. Everybody likes playing video games, and everybody likes playing those war video games and things like that. And if you think by sitting there playing video games that you're getting some experience as to what that sense of challenge, that sense of fear, that sense of potential loss is, my recommendation is ask your teacher, or ask your parents, sleep outside in the cold, because I used to go visit my dad on exercise. Take your video game with you and have nothing but a bowl of soup, sleep out in the cold, cold tent, play your video game, and now ask yourself, how many days could I do this? These are sometimes the sacrifices that our soldiers made. And somebody's going to tell me that, well, you don't know what it's like either. I'm not saying I do, but I do know what it's like to sleep outside. And sometimes that's not fun either. But I know that there's long stories of my dad being on exercise. And that also doesn't include all the weapons fights and the training and the sounds and the sheer exhaustion that comes with it. But I can't say enough for those people who accepted that challenge and representing our good nation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and on a lighter note, I think I was watching TikTok the other day, and there's a gentleman that I think is a U.S. Marine, and his whole thing is showing how to eat a ration, and he has different sort of rations, and it's like watching a recipe show, but he's totally excited about eating this food and these little envelopes and shaking them and all that stuff. Yeah, but it's very interesting how they have all that stuff. So
big reminder to our listeners out there, make sure you reach out to your family members. And whenever you get a chance to see a veteran, just thank them for their service. That goes a long way. So, and I know, Jason, thank you for sending that information. So folks, www.legion.ca, there's a big button right there where you can share an opportunity to fund the Poppy Fund, and bullvalleycollege.ca. George and I know, Lawrence, you participate in so many different events when it comes to all of the different education agencies, the federal, the provincial agencies, and all of the regional events that happen. So thank you for taking your time and in recognizing, and thanks you to the Squeaky Wheel for inviting, for this conversation, because there's a necessity in it. One of the things I wanted to rant about, Lawrence, as we move along in our program was, folks, I've had this conversation a number of times. Again, we were talking a little earlier, we can't stress enough about wearing masks. And if you're going to ride with somebody in their car, you cannot distance. Wear a mask. And I get it. Recently, somebody within my little social circle said, well, we were just going to the store and this person was just going to drop me off. And then 3 days later, that person sends a message saying, well, I tested positive. And I asked that person, I said, well, did you wear a mask when you spent the time with them? No. Again, I'm not too sure how this is all supposed to work. There's way smarter people up there who are helping manage this, but they are asking, do what you can to limit the spread, folks. And if that means wearing a mask, and wearing a mask with people who are not directly in your social bubble, that family that you live with all day long, wear it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess, by the time this airs, we'll have hopefully a new president. But the whole anxiety leading into the election day, and then the count after, and then, all these lawsuits that are happening because they want to recount. Well, they're entitled to that, of course, through the democratic system. But, we just don't need to see all these big public rallies about it. And hopefully by then, the person who's crowned the winner will lead in a exemplary manner, in a respectful manner to all their citizens.
My attitude is, folks,
that's the most
if you want to fight for a president, fight for Lawrence. That's my attitude. That group down there is going to have to sort that out. So instead of spending so much time worried about what's happening with American politics, let's focus on what's happening here. And if you want to support a president, well, you support Lawrence and you support the squeaky wheel. So Lawrence, I might end us there. So I want to say thank you again to George for bringing his message to the squeaky wheel, the Aboriginal message, the Indigenous message, the veteran message, that conversation, so that we get a chance to share it with all of our listeners. Thank you, Lawrence, again, always for the time that we spend on the squeaky wheel and your patience with me and the humor that you bring. And each time we have a conversation. So I know we did our big acknowledgement. That's one sort of thing that we've changed. We do a bit more of our big respectful acknowledgement at the start of the show. And so I wanted to just say, but I don't like not having the chance to say thank you, Lawrence, and to keep the fire burning. So close us out.
Yes, thank you, Ross. Another week. Hopefully you can start walking a little bit normal pretty soon. And thanks to Jason for setting all this up as our digital media content coordinator. I forget his title. It's so big. It's digital media manager. Sorry, I need to get that correct. But I mean, all our social media, our annual reports, all the video reports that we put together, all the acknowledgements for Métis Week. He's currently working on that stuff. So he's a very busy guy, and hopefully we can get him an assistant one day.
Or I can get myself one. Where's Jason mine? Anyways, let's close it out there. Thank you, folks.